Okay, we are live a little bit early. And let me go and get the Amazon thing going live here. We'll click on Go Live. And we're there. Okay, so we got in a couple of external SSDs, and I am eager to test them out. These, by the way, are from Buffalo, and Buffalo's been making storage products for a very long time. In fact, I think my very first network attached storage device was a Buffalo. So I have a long history with this company. And what we're going to be doing today is just testing out a couple of things here related to these hard drives. So we're going to get started in just a second. And what I need to do real quick is just grab something off my front porch that Jake just dropped off. So if you don't mind, in the chat, just tell everybody just to talk amongst yourselves for a minute. This is going to take me a second to go get this, so I'm going to go grab it real quick. It's a computer that I will be reviewing later in the week. Another one of these super lightweight ones. So I'm just going to go pick that up off the porch. And yes, I need to WD-40 the whatever. But we'll get that done soon. And that will prep tomorrow's project. So today's project is these hard drives, which I'm going to review together just because they are similar. They're from the same brand, and it doesn't take long these days to review a hard drive, I think. So I think I can do these two together. So, okay, there we go. So let me say hello to some friends who have popped in first. So we have Dava here. Dava is here. Recipe Bob is here. It's definitely early for me. So the reason is that I am ready to start experimenting with these now. So I thought what I would do is capture all the B-roll this morning, and then when I'm done with the stream, have lunch and then record the video. That's the plan. So yep, so definitely early today, but I see some of the regulars popping in here. Joe is here from Apex, North Carolina. Greg is watching yet another RX 6600 XT review. William Wilkinson is here. Yes, we reviewed that router probably about 5 or 6 years ago. It was the one, right, it was running DDWRT. Yep, so they make routers also. And Greg was mumbling, mumble while I was getting that thing off the porch. Recipe Bob almost bought one of their NAS devices, but went with Synology. Yeah, in the early days, excuse me, lose my voice already. In the early days, they were kind of like the market leader for NAS, but they were very simple. They were just that. They were network attached storage and not much else. So now they're a little bit more than that. So these, by the way, came in free of charge. So we'll unbox both of them. Now, my understanding on this one is that this is a USB Gen 3.2 Gen 1 or whatever. So it's not going to be all that fast. Neither one of these will be all that quick, although this one has a firmware update, which we'll get to in a second. Nick in the Amazon chat says, is there a good price for these? Actually, if you look on the product carousel down below, you will see the items that you can click on if you're watching on Amazon. So this one is like a traditional, kind of like your traditional external hard drive looking thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a SATA SSD inside of this thing. It does not look like you can easily take it apart, so we're not going to shuck it today. Unless there's something underneath these little rubber feet we could look at. So a couple other things that they are apparently offering here, which is a data recovery service, free evaluation and no shipping fee, no data recovered, no charge. It's only a US service. And they're saying that this is ruggedized. If it's plastic though, but it's an SSD, so of course by nature it is going to be rugged. And you get a USB what do they call this? A USB-B to USB-C adapter thing here. I always get nervous with these things because I think these are out of spec adapters. So we're going to plug it in when we do it with this into a 10 gig port in the back. But remember, this one, as far as I can remember, let me just pull up the specs on it. I am pretty sure that this one is just USB. So this is the PG1. This is just USB Gen 1. So it does 5 gigabits per second max. So let me just double check that. I'm just going to pull it up on their website. So this is the SSD PG. And the specifications on this are USB 3.2 Gen 1. So this is a, kind of like a budget offering. But it's an SSD. It'll be faster, and we'll do a test on it in a minute. This will work with game consoles too. So you could use this with PlayStations and Xboxes, but there'll be a caveat on the Xbox thing, which I need to mention. Nick wants to know, are these a good price? I think Amazon's price is the best price you'll get. $100 for, this is 500 gigs, I think. Oh, this is 1 terabyte for $100, which I think is a pretty good deal for an SSD. We're at the point now where the SSDs are getting close to where the spinning drives were. So you could probably buy, a 4 terabyte spinning drive for around what this 1 terabyte costs, but this is going to be a lot faster, even though it is the older USB. Now, the other one they sent me, let's take a look at a few other things in the box here. This is the data recovery thing. Quick setup guide, just plug it in. Not much more to do. And they have a gaming console connection guide in here, too. So they tell you how to connect it. So these drives will not work with some of the next generation games. So on the Xbox Series S and X, if the game requires faster I/O, it won't support the drive. It's got to use that faster Microsoft Seagate thing. On the PlayStation 5, I think it's only PS4 and lower that you can run off of this, as I understand it. So what you can do is move your older games to this, and that'll free up the fastest storage for your newer games. And we'll do a test on these in a second. Now, this one is kind of a USB stick, but it is a solid-state drive, an SSD speed-wise. Yep. Let's see, what just fell out? I think that was the USB-C adapter that was flopping around in there. And this one is more of a stick format. But this is much faster than a USB stick you might purchase, because this is an SSD and not a piece of NAND flash on a USB interface. So this sells for, let's pull it up on the carousel. So this one's a little more expensive, because as you know, the smaller you get, the more expensive things become. So this one, I got to pull the plastic off of it. This one sells for $75 for a 500 gig unit. I'll get in a little tighter here. And then the USB connector extends here. So you got to use an adapter. Now, there is a firmware update for this one, which we're going to run in a second, because I don't know if this one has it on already or not, but they apparently just pushed down a firmware update that makes this run a lot faster. So when it first came out, it was just USB 3.2 or whatever, Gen 1. It was the 5 gigabit speeds, and then they upped it. So now it runs on the faster USB speed. And they're saying you can get like 600 megabytes a second out of this thing. So it's not as fast as NVMe would be, but it is going to be wicked fast for a USB stick. So we'll see how this plays out when we pop it into the computer here. And I'll say hello to a few more folks here. DJ CM is here. Hello. Good morning to you. Thomas Woodford is here. Donald Newman is here. Luis Rosero Tejada is here. Hello. Yeah, this is not for the, right, this looks like that, doesn't it? But it's not. No, so these are only for, these are just standard USB whatevers. And what we're gonna do in a minute is, here, I'll show you the computer we're going to use to test today. We are going to plug it in to that Legion tower that's still sitting next to me. I haven't yet gotten to the review yet on this one, but we are going to plug into that to do our testing. And I've got a reverse angle on it so you can see it when we've got the drive plugged in. So the shot's a little crooked. I'll fix that in a minute, but that's what we're gonna plug it into that thing, and that will ensure that we've got a nice fast USB port to plug it into. Because I found with some of my laptops, the speed of the USB ports varies greatly, even on my little Legion laptop. So the Thunderbolt port obviously is not restricted at all, but the USB controller connected to that Thunderbolt port, it runs a lot slower than the port on my desktop gaming machine. So I've been running the disk mark tests on the gaming machine. By the way, there is a lot of plastic that I am peeling off of here, and it doesn't come off easily. So you just need to be prepared for that. I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, I guess they're trying to make it so it's not all scratched up when you get it. But like that plastic was like right on the edge of the connector. So I think we got it all off of there. So what I thought we would do is start with the stick one, because this one might have a firmware update that we have to download. So let's start there. And I'm going to give you my rear view here. And I'm just going to plug this in. I'm going to plug this into I have a 10 gig port on the back here, so I'm going to plug it into that. And that should come up on our screen here. So let's go to our desktop of the computer. And let's take a look at the SSD put. There it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do first here, though, is grab the firmware. So there's apparently a firmware update, which we're going to download real quick. Here, let me get you a better angle on the other shot here so we can kind of see what I'm typing in. A little more interactive here. So right now it's plugged into the back of the computer, and you can see it right there. I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit for you. I got my PTZ camera out, so I can just position it down here. It's got a mega zoom on it too, doesn't it? So there it is. I haven't white balanced this camera, so it's a little on the warmer side, but we're just doing a stream here, so we'll just play around with it that way. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the website for this and take a look at that. Here's a question that I am not sure about from William Wilkinson about the SSD on the Xbox or PS4 or 5. I think he's right that you probably need exFAT as the format, so let me know. And yes, we are definitely starting a little earlier than usual, just because I was ready to start a lot earlier than usual, so that's why we're doing that. Miriam Smith is here. Paul Wakefield is here. Jess, you liked the video we did last night. Yeah, I thought that was important to get out there, regardless of how you feel about it. I tried to be really middle of the road. Some people thought I was too editorializing one way or the other, but I feel like there's implications of good intentions, so that's my concern. DJ says they should have made it USB-C. Yeah, they did include the adapter. So there's one of these adapters in the box for both of them. So there is an adapter so you can plug it directly in, but you have to have the dongle. And Chris Green is here, likes the shot. Awesome. So here you go. All right, so what we're going to do here, oh, it's out of focus. Let's get back on that and turn the focus thing on here. I can focus it. Isn't this cool? I can control every aspect of that camera remotely. And you can set presets. I did a video a while ago about this high school graduation I shot with one of these things. It was really cool. All right, so now we got the drive installed, and there's apparently a firmware update that is available for this. So I need to find that real quick. So let's type in SSD put. That's the model number. And there should be a firmware update. I read somewhere about a firmware update, but it doesn't seem to. Download page. Okay, formatting guide, disk formatter, firmware updater. accept. And now I can download the firmware updater. It may be that we have the current firmware, but this firmware just came out. So I want to make sure that we give it a fair shake here. So we're going to just grab the downloads folder here, and we're going to extract all, and we're going to run the firmware. And let's see what we get. And for reference, this is the one we're testing to start with here. Okay. And they call it a mini station. I don't think that's what this is, but this is the right thing here. Okay, so we're going to click Update. And it is updating the firmware. So apparently it must have found that it needed an update. So let's do that real quick. And I'm going to eject it and plug it back in again. So there it goes. And we're just going to go over here and pop it out and pop it back in. Now I've got this connected on one of the 10 gig ports. So the first thing we're going to do here is take a look at the Blackmagic disk speed test. And what we're going to do is I'm going to record some B-roll of that test running. And before I do, I'm going to zoom in my camera view here on that test so that I've got a nice piece of B-roll here. And you know what's kind of funny about this shot right now? Look at this. It's like you could picture that being Lon in the middle, right? All right, so now we've got this ready to go. And hit start. And there, whoa, wrong drive. Sorry, that was not the right drive. Not that fast. Let's go and select the right one here. And Chris Allegretta is here. Hi, Chris Allegretta. I am doing well and totally safe. Stuck in my basement lair as usual. But we are all good here. Everybody's healthy and happy. And Chris Green is here. And MZA Monster is here. And Matthew is here, who says that when you plug it into the console, that's right, it should offer a format. That's correct. I forgot about that. You are right about that. And Roger P. has never heard of the Buffalo brand before. Yeah, they've been around for a very long time, making network-attached storage devices. All right, so I'm just going to make a folder on my computer here. This is going to be Buffalo SSDs. Now remember, this is a USB stick that we are playing with here. So let's start the test. Yeah, not bad. And we're going to let this run out a little bit because what's important is what happens on the return trip. So it's going to write that data, it's going to read that data, and then it's going to write it again. So if there's a caching issue, you're going to see that write speed decline significantly. But it looks like it's holding its own. Yep, not bad. Oh, there it goes. See that? It just dropped a little bit. But it's still staying above 500, so that's not bad. But I have found there's a tremendous variability in the performance of USB ports on different computers. So this one is essentially a USB stick. I'm going to let that keep running here. And it's got a little nice light there. It's blinking as it's going, doing its thing. So you can see it going there. Fern is here on the Amazon chat. Hello. And if you're curious about how many megabits, or this is pushing about 4 gigabits right now. So that tells me that it's likely breaking into the USB Gen 2 territory here because of overhead and everything else. So yeah, I think that's not a bad test. All right, so we got that part done. Just to start it off, and I'm just going to make a quick note in my Google Doc about this. And lots of comments on the USB-C. Yeah, your only option for USB-C is to use the included adapters. So they've got one of these USB-A to USB-C adapters. I've never been crazy about those. I've always preferred them to put in a separate cable, but it is what it is. USB-C adapters in box. All right, and these are like budget offerings too. You know, they're not that expensive. All right, so that's the first test. Now the next test we have to run is the crystal disk mark test, which I run on all of these things. So we're going to pull this one up now. Oops, wrong one. And this will tell us some other things, because it's not just, you're not just after the sequential speeds here. You want to know how well this drive does with random reads and writes as well. And just give me a second here. All right, we're going to let that run. Now you see that this one will give you a score that's slightly higher. And it's just based on how these things operate. So the disk speed test is a little different. And let this run out for a second. And so what it does first is it writes a block of data to the disk, and then it reads it back. And we'll let this run. This takes a little bit of time to run, so we will let that go. And in the interim, this is the other one that we'll be looking at. And this one is really more of your traditional drive, but this is also an SSD. And it is a USB Gen 1 device, so it's 5 gigabits per second max. This one that we're looking at now, that is currently running, once the firmware update's put in, it becomes a USB Gen 2 device, so it's got a little more bandwidth. I think this one's actually going to be faster than the bigger one here is going to be. But we'll see when it's done with the testing here. But so far it's doing okay. So let that run. And it's almost done. It's actually not doing bad here. This is a pretty good level of performance, you know, for a non-NVMe drive. So I'm particularly interested in these two scores here. These are the random reads and writes. And that's pretty good, I think, for the price point here. So it's almost done. Well, let's let that run for a little bit longer. And then we'll try out the other one. The other one is not going to do as well as this one, but we will see. And if you're curious about the size of it, let me show you with my hand here so you can get the context. I'm not going to touch it, but this is my hand behind it. So you can see it's really the size of like a USB stick. Now the test it's running right now is the write test. So it's writing now to the disk. And it will run the same operation 5 times, and then it kind of takes the average. And it does that because if you have caching issues, that stuff will come out when you're running this thing. And so far, I got to say, this is not bad. And Chris brings up the wireless router, the router that we were just talking about. Yeah, I have that upstairs somewhere. It is a they made a router that ran, and I think it was the first one to do this. It ran on an open source router. It's pretty cool. Stuart is here from the UK. Brett is here. Good morning. Venom Snakes is here. Connor Lavoie is here. Baki Chanduri is here. Thank you. Sharat wants to know, what phones do I own? I own so my daily driver is an iPhone 12 Pro. And then I have a pair of Google Pixel phones that I use quite a bit. So, all right, so now here's the final result. I'm just going to type this into my database. And I'm also going to grab a screenshot and put this on my desktop real quick here. So this is, okay, so this is the SSD put crystal test. Now, what's neat about this one, and I'm going to find my SSD, I have an SSD benchmark thing on in my spec sheets here. What's neat about this one is that the speeds here feel to me like they are pretty good for what is essentially a budget kind of device. You know, it's not cheap, but comparatively for, like, you're spending more for 500 gigabytes with this versus a USB stick. But, and I'll, here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share this image with you. So let me just get this going up on screen here, because I can show you how this one compares with some others that I have tested. So let me just bring in another network video source here. We're giving my production computer a good run today, because I'm just going to bang in this data from what we just recorded here. Now, if you go to Lon.TV/benchmarks, this is on my spreadsheet. So now what we're going to do here, this is the Buffalo SSD PUT, USB 3.2 or 1, Gen 2. I don't know what they call it these days. So we're going to just type it in here, 661.6, very good. And I'll compare that to, I'm going to compare this to some in a second here. It's not going to be up to where the current gen super fast NVMe based ones are, but you'll see here when we get into the random stuff, this is really good. 123, 124.9, 23.31, and 40.78, and that's on a write. So here's like a couple of a couple of comparatives here. So let me zoom this out for a second. If you look here, the WD My Passport SSD would be one. It's not quite a competitor because it's not a USB Gen 2 device, but this is in the same price category more or less, so you can see where that one falls in. I'm going to move the record up here to the T7, which is not a fair comparison completely because it's based on a different drive technology, but you know, it's pretty good, you know, for what it is. It's not going to be as good as a T7 because it's a different technology, but it's smaller. And I got to look back and see if I've got, I'm just looking through here on this list, if I have some older drives that I can compare it to. Because most of these new ones on this list are all, yeah, I think it might just be a good point of comparison. But if you look at this compared to like the My Passport, it's hard to find a good place to compare this to. So this one would definitely compare with the My Passport SSD. So we'll have to play this out a little bit more. So bear with me here, folks. And we will continue onward here in a second. Okay, so we've got our 2 tests done on this one. So now we're going to pull this one out, and we're going to run the same stuff on the other one. And I did get a question here from T. Cunningham on next-gen consoles. So here's, I'm glad you brought this up again because I forgot to put it in my bullet point list here. So here's the deal with this one and with this one. If you've got a next generation game console, this will run the old generation games, likely not the new ones. However, I found a few games that are enhanced for the Xbox Series X that will still run off of these things. So this is certainly very fast for the price point, but your PS5 and your Xbox Series X may or may not, allow you to run the next-gen games off of it. And actually, they include in the package here a guide, which I thought was very helpful for people to understand what the limitations are here. So in the case of the PS5, for example, you can offload all of your older games to the external storage and then put the newer ones on the faster internal storage. So that's what you're going to want to do there. And we'll bring that up in the review. They'll work fine. I'll plug it in before I shoot the video later, but I know it'll work. But you have that limitation of the fact that they're just not fast enough for the games that are kind of assuming that you're going to have an NVMe to plug in. So I just ejected this one, and what we're going to do next, and I always like to, by the way, use the included cables to test, because that's what most people are going to have when they get these things. And now what I'm going to do is plug in this one, which is the external here. And we're just going to put it up here on top of the computer. So I'm going to pull this out. And this is going to be slower, okay? But it should be a decent performer nonetheless. So we'll put that up there. I wonder if I could position it. Because it is an SSD, so it doesn't really matter if it flops over because it's all solid state. All right, so that is the one we're trying out next here. And there is a light on there. Okay, so we've plugged it in. Let us see if the computer can find it. Give me a second here. I just want to make let's reset our zoom on this for a second. And Roger P, actually, yeah, next-gen console recommendations. Add that to my list of things to talk about. Roger P wants to know, where can you get an affordable 10 gigabit switch? Good luck. I think, you should look at granted, QNAP's got their security issues, but their switches are okay. QNAP has a bunch of switches. I reviewed a few. In fact, I reviewed one just recently that's got two 10 gig ports, and then I think 8 or 10 2.5 gig ports. I've got another one upstairs that has 4 10 gig ports, and you can choose RJ45 or the other, the SFP Plus. So I would take a look at some of the QNAP switches, Roger P. Okay, let's grab a few more hellos. Anthony Biacco is here. Good to see you. Yeah, we're going to start the testing on this in just a second here. And there's no firmware for this one, so we're just going to run with it. Stuart had a Wi-Fi Buffalo Air station in the mid-2000s. He was really chuffed when it worked. Flood of Sins wants to know, will I get the new iPhone 13? Maybe. It depends on what is new about it. And Patrick says a fair comparison with the T7 in a sense. I think you're right about that. I'm going to include that and the my whatever it is. D. Johnson is here. Hello. Real Sergeant Tom is here from Seattle. And yeah, yet another comment on the Series X. So yeah, so remember everybody, I'm going to make this point very clearly in the video that I should almost make a whole video on this, but these drives will work with a game console, but the next-gen consoles, their games that are written for those consoles do not like slow storage. And although these are not slow per se, they are slow based on what the developers are expecting out of NVMe drives that are typically installed on there. So what you do is you take your old games, your PS4, your Xbox 360, your regular Xbox One games, you offload those to the external storage and then install your new generation titles on the console itself. That's how this gets you more space. And Sharat's asking, what TWS do I use? I don't know what that is. Eric's Variety Channel is here. Hello. He's listening in as he's driving. Stay safe out there. Win32 says they removed the screen on the iPhone. Yeah, no screens anymore. It just goes right to your head. Anthony Biacco wants to know how my brother's Starlink is doing. Actually, it's going very well. I just talked to him the other day. We are in the process of scheduling another trip up there. I'm going to get a bunch of Unify gear and get his network fixed. So that is coming up at some point in the near future. And he also let me know that he's got a lot more syrup from this year's harvest. So if anyone is running low on syrup, he's got more in stock. So he's eager to get that going. All right, let's begin with the disk speed test, the Blackmagic test. And we'll boot that up real quick. And I'm going to switch over to our test machines view here. And we'll just zoom in a little bit. Get that centered. There we go. And let me just go back to my folder. And we're going to call this 100 SSD put Blackmagic. Okay, so now we're going to do the other one. And now we're looking at the SSD PG. Now this is, I think, a very inexpensive 1 terabyte SSD. It costs about $100. So that is it. And Wolf39 US is here. Hello, fellow nutmegger. Yes, I am right here in Connecticut. A beautiful place to live. And Wolf, Frontier has been pretty aggressive on the fiber. So from what I'm hearing, I haven't. So here's what's funny about this Frontier thing. Not to get on a tangent here, but I have reached out to all of the ISPs in Connecticut, including some of the scrappier ones, and I said, I want to do a tour of your head-end facility. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody. I talked to Comcast. I talked to Frontier. I talked to Go NetSpeed. Nobody wants to show me that. And I think people would find that really interesting to see, because we all know how our networks work in our homes, but we don't know what they look like outside the home, right? So that's what I want to do next, but nobody wants to invite me. So I've got a few other tricks up my sleeve. I got something I'm working on, so we'll see where we end up. All right, we're going to run the Blackmagic disk speed test now, which is the one we ran before. We're going to run that on the slower drive here. And I predict that we're going to get about 300 megabytes per second. That's my prediction. Let's see if that is true. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Yep, right on the money. Not bad, though. I mean, for $100, it's certainly going to be 3 times faster than a spinning drive you would get in this form factor. So this one will really line up with the WD My Passport. And that one I have upstairs I use for my Mister. It's got like the USB cable built in, which is kind of handy, but you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But still, this is not bad. Now, a couple of years ago, this would have been like groundbreakingly fast. But they're not marketing this as a super fast high performer. They're marketing this as a budget external solid state drive. And the price, again, is competitive, I think, with what you would get out of a spinning drive that's certainly more fragile. But I am not displeased with that score as it's running here. And it's got a nice little light. Now this light does not blink as fast as the other one, so it just kind of pulses when it has something going on there. This is the SSD what do they call this? The P1. This is the PG. Okay. All right. And I like to let the test run for a little bit just to make sure it stays consistent, but it seems to be doing that. a lot of times with some of these NVMe drives, they're not well designed. And a lot of times these companies don't make the internal components. So I've seen a lot of them, like you run them and you get this really fast test out of the gate, and then they just slow right down when you get to like the 2-minute mark because they get too hot and the cache fills up and they become like slower than spinning. So you got to be really careful with that stuff. So good stuff. Okay, that's a good first test. So now we're going to run the crystal disk mark test. And we're going to go ahead and run this. And this will take, obviously, some time, so we're going to let it run. Now, this is a 1 terabyte drive versus 500 gigabytes on the other one. But we'll go ahead and let that run real quick and see what we end up with. Now, here, I expect that we'll see, close scores on the sequential reads and writes, as we just saw with the black magic test. But we'll see how this plays out in a second. All right, let me take some questions here while this is running. Eduardo says this would be good for, yeah, if you're looking for, because this will be faster than a spinning drive, because you can see the kind of performance you're going to get out of it. Now, what it'll be telling is how well it does on the random reads and writes, right? That would be the telling factor there. I wish I had a current spinning drive in to do a fair comparison, because I'm sure they've improved in performance a little bit. But this will still be, compared to a spinning drive, much better for gaming than a spinning drive would be. Real Sergeant Tom's mom got Starlink down in Florida. Very convenient since they launched the satellites from there, right? So that's a good thing. John says, QNAP seems to favor the SFP Plus connections. He just bought a Zycel. Yeah, that's the problem. All this stuff is in such short supply. I have not had issues with my QNAP hardware. I've got one upstairs that I use in my secondary office space, and I'm running 10 gigs over Cat5 from down here to up there. It's not far. It's maybe 15, 20 feet. But I have not had any issues. I'm getting my full bandwidth out of that, and everything is plugged in with RJ45. Sharat says TWS are earphones. Yeah, I just use the regular AirPods, the entry-level ones. And then I have a pair of over-the-ear Sennheiser Momentums that I love for listening to my lossless music. Those are great. And the Zycel, yeah, these are coming down. So the Zycel is going for $320, and there's a $250 one out there now too. All right, so now you'll notice here that this one is doing really well. And what I'm curious about here is this is running. Now, this test is not done yet, but this one we're definitely going to compare to the WD My Passport. And on the reads so far, it's doing much better. So the writes will be interesting. The My Passport did not do well on the writing component. So we'll see how this does on the random reads and writes. But again, for a low-cost drive, not bad. I would love to know like what kind of components go into these things, because I don't think Buffalo makes flash memory. So they're obviously using somebody else's, but whatever they're doing here, it seems to be working pretty well. And again, this is not going to compete with the more expensive ones that are out there. But for $100 for a solid-state terabyte, not bad. And what's the warranty on these? Let's see. This has a 2-year warranty. I think that's the same on both. Let's see. Yeah, both of these have a 2-year warranty. So I think the WDs or the SanDisks have a 5-year. So the warranty length is a little shorter. But we'll let that run out here and see what we get. Roger P. cannot wait for the new NVMe 2.0 hard drives. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with what I get out of the NVMEs that I have already. but it never stops, right? It keeps going. What's good here is that there's a lot of consistency on those second two tests on both of these. They seem to be performing very similarly. I need to check and make sure they are in fact different tests because it looks so close on both, right? And what it is that some of these are multi-threaded and some of these are not. So this one here is a single thread. So it's like one operation, and this is sending multiple operations to read and write randomly, as I understand how this works. It's kind of oftentimes what I do, because for consumers, they just need to know, like, is it good or not? You can really get into the weeds on this stuff. And what's helpful is to just do an analysis based on this. And what this means for gaming in particular. So take a look at these. This is where you're going to be living most of the time if you're running games off your SSD, is in these areas of random reads and writes, okay? So this is where solid-state drives fall short, but also where spinning drives fall short. So the sequential speeds are what they are, right? I mean, it's as fast as it can take the data in and write or read it. But the random reads and writes are more realistic to what running an operating system would be like, or what playing a game would be like. And so when you see, it's not unusual to see much slower speeds in those random spaces, but this one seems to do okay. So I'm going to go back over to my spreadsheet, and I'm going to just put this right above the drive that I think they're likely competing with here, which is the WD My Passport SSD. I think they still sell it. Let's see. It's funny, when I search for that, I get this one. Yeah, My Passport Go. I'm sorry, that's what it is. So, and of course, with everything being out of stock, it's hard to find it. Let's see, My Passport Go. Let's see if I can find that. Here it is, My Passport Go SSD. The 1 terabyte version from WD actually costs $40 more. And the performance here, and I'll pull up my spreadsheet, the performance here is not bad comparatively. So let's go through the list here. 393.4, 303.5, much better on writes than the WD drive is. Much better on random reads. Much, much better on random writes. See that? So it's pretty remarkable here, comparatively, for a low-cost drive to be doing as well as this is. And these are those single-threaded tests here. So the random writes, the write speeds overall on the WD are not very fast at all. And that's the WD My Passport Go, I think they call it now. Unless they've done a revision of it since I reviewed it last year. But that's pretty good. I'll highlight it here so you can see the differences there. Oops, my screen keeps jumping over. Let me zoom out for a second. I'm just selecting it so you can get a good comparative so you can see it. So that is your comparative right there. So it writes a lot better, a lot faster on everything. And it reads faster too. So it's faster and costs less. But I don't think you get the same warranty. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, let me go and take a screenshot of this so that I have that. And this is SSD PG Crystal Test. All right, I think that's on my desktop. Let me just make sure. Yes. Perfect. because I like to put up that screen during the review just so people can see it. All right. Stuart Hutchinson says that the SSD in his Intel Mac Mini, yeah, those Intel Mac Minis are running on NVMe SSDs, so those are super fast. Wolf wants to know if I've been using the M1 as a Plex server. I have not, and I just heard from a viewer who's been having some trouble with 4K transcoding now on the M1, so I have to revisit that. I'll get my screen back up here. Mark Smith wants to know, what's the interface? The interface is good old USB 3.0. It's nothing fancy here. And I'll show you how I've got it connected. We'll go to my PTZ controls. So you can see it's just plugged in with a regular old USB cable there at the bottom. Nothing fancy. It is basic transportation, but it's, I think for the price point, it's pretty good. Yeah, Patrick Taney says, about better than explaining the USB-C standard. It's a nightmare. It's such a nightmare. Eric just got an ad for the computer we've got on screen here. It's in your head. They know you're looking at it. But get to work. You got work to do. I got work to do too. So I'm going to be taking a few more questions and wrapping up my work here so I can start shooting some stuff. Got to stay ahead of the game here. And Kaylee is here from Japan. I thought Buffalo was a Japan-only brand, but guess they branched out. Yeah, they've been here in the U.S. for a long, long time, but not often top of mind. I think for a while they were like the network-attached storage brand for a while. Oh, that was you, Wolf. So. Yeah, I think, did you email me or you commented? I can't remember, but I think you commented. Yeah, I need to go back and look at that. The only thing I can think of is that it seems to me like that color grading might still be running, or like you turned it off and didn't reboot the server, but I think you said you did that, so I don't know. I'll have to take a look at that again. And it looks like Andrew Cuomo just resigned, according to Flood of Sins. Yeah, I think he lost everybody around him, so it didn't seem like it was going to go for too much longer there. Let's see. Sharat, just a thought. If there's a USB Type A pen drives, why can't a dongle for wireless keyboard and mice be made Type A and Type C privacy enhanced for those who fear virtual keyboards? Well, you could put an adapter in, right? You could just take one of these adapters and plug it into your computer, into your phone if you want. You can certainly do that. Gaunter makes a good point. This is something that I think is worth talking about as well, that you can kind of build your own, which we have done. We've done a bunch of videos about building our own. I got to find where it is. But Sabrent makes these really cost-effective adapters that you can plug in an NVMe and be off and running with that. In fact, we've done those before. So you can do that for sure. And I have one. Actually, let me show you the one that I have. I won't take it apart right now, but I've got a couple of them. And actually, I've got one that's a little bit larger than the one I'm going to show you. That is a Thunderbolt and a USB. So when you plug it into Thunderbolt, you get essentially an NVMe Thunderbolt drive. And it wasn't that expensive. I can't remember what I paid, what it costs, but so this is what he's talking about here. So what you do is you unscrew. Actually, this one, this is not. It looks like this. What you do is you unscrew the bottom and you just pop in an NVMe, and you've got your own, and you can pick what drive goes into it. So you know what I'm going to do? Let me go get the one upstairs real quick. I will show you the Thunderbolt one that I have. It's a little bit bigger than your run-of-the-mill one, but let me just go run upstairs here for a second. Every one of my doors squeaks. And you know what? I like it, because if a child or animal escapes the house, I hear them leaving. Like people have those security systems that beep every time you open a door. I just have squeaks. And you can't disable the squeak unless you open the door and make it squeak. Low tech is sometimes the best tech. So this one's cool. So this is I think Sabrent makes this also. I once heard from the Sabrent people that these guys rip them off all the time, or vice versa. I can't remember. But this is the Acasys, and it doesn't even require tools, and it has an NVMe inside. And this, if you plug it into Thunderbolt, it runs at full Thunderbolt speeds. And if you plug it into USB, it works with USB also. So this is compatible with everything I have in the house. And it just runs faster when it's plugged into a Thunderbolt computer. So it's really, really handy. But look how small this is. This thing performed great. You know, and I would have loved to have seen a USB-C built in, because I think we've got enough people now with USB-C, so maybe an updated design. They could maybe mirror that, that SanDisk design and have the USB-C pop out the other end or something, but this thing performed great. So just for context, I'll put up the image that we had earlier. So that was the crystal disk mark on this one. Very fast for a USB stick. My goodness, look at that. Really good stuff. So yeah, I've been pretty pleased with these. Patrick is wondering how much overhead is there with the Sabrents. I think it's about what you would experience with other ones. I've reviewed a bunch of these, so if you go back into my back catalog, you'll see some of my videos for those. You know, I think for the techies watching, it's something that you all would love. I mean, it's such an easy project, because like this one in particular was super easy. It even comes with like a little bit of thermal tape here that connects with the top of the case. So the case acts like a big heat sink. So the other Sabrent ones are smaller, but they're only like USB. This one does both USB-C and Thunderbolt. And it will automatically detect what's in there. And this has a Samsung 1 terabyte NVMe inside. And I use this so what I do when I record my videos is I convert my vMix lossless AVI to ProRes, and I copy the files onto this. This is exFAT formatted. And then I plug it into my Mac via Thunderbolt, and all the footage is read from this drive, and I use a Mac formatted drive for the Final Cut project. Long story, but everything references what's on the disk there. So that seems to work. Chris's security system is a dog barking. Yeah, my dog is a horrible watchdog. Nick92 says, get the pluggable NVMe external SSD. It's very easy to install and very fast. I think I have one of those too. In fact, I have one of those somewhere. I think I reviewed that one also. I don't know where I put that one now. I've got so many of these things, I forget where we're going. Patrick Chang says, the squeaky door is not part of my Wi-Fi net. Yeah, completely off the grid. Nobody can spy on my squeaking, nor can it be disabled. And Gaurav says, I agree. Simplicity is sometimes the best sophistication. You know what's funny? So back when I was working in the private sector, we undertook an initiative to make all of our documents electronic, which made a lot of sense in a lot of areas. And one of the problems that we ran into, this is about the simplicity. One of the problems that we ran into was that if a customer called about the status of an order or a price on an order, or what they ordered was not what they received, you know, oddly enough, where I used to work, we got most of our orders in via fax or from a verbal phone order. Really old school. And so the problem is you get all this paper, and it would go into a filing cabinet. And so when that customer would call, the salesperson would get up from their desk, or the customer service person, depending on who got the call. They'd walk into the file cabinet. It'd probably take them 20 minutes to go and just find the documents, let alone analyze what was there. So that was a no-brainer. Just go ahead and scan everything, and they can sit at their desk and pull it up while the customer's on the phone. A lot better. So that was good. And a lot of times, like the documentation was shipping related, so we'd have stuff from the shipping company. And we had a really good system we put together where it would automatically sort and everything by OCR and everything. It was awesome. But the purchasing department had a different system in that they were tracking overseas shipments with containers. And they had probably 200 or 300 active shipments at any given time that they were keeping track of. And their system worked better with paper because there was so much fewer documents to handle, and there was only one person who was generally handling the documents, and most of those were at her desk. So it just, like you think, oh, automation is going to solve everything. But in the case of the purchasing department, it didn't solve anything. In fact, it made it more complicated. So we left it paper in purchasing and electronic where it made sense. And that's where I've always been. It's like you don't need, the technology doesn't always solve your problems. Sometimes it makes the problems worse. So it's interesting. Now this is another thing, back to the topic here. Kaylee in Japan says Buffalo is the router brand where she is. And their general computer peripherals are popular. So that's really, I bet you, are they a Japanese brand? They must be. So it's, yeah, we'll have to see, we'll have to do some more research on the brand. Yeah, they reached out a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we got these SSDs. So I'm pretty impressed with them. I mean, for low-cost SSDs, this one especially, I mean, this feels like nothing. It's like super lightweight. These are made in Taiwan, so there must be a Taiwanese company. Synology is a Taiwanese company. I think QNAP is too. So it's nice. Roger wants to know, how much hard drive and SSD do I need? Well, I have more than I need, but less than I want. How's that sound? Because I'm always like, I've got stuff on SSDs everywhere. I try to be better about archiving things that are important. I don't keep my, my raw footage. So I only archive the final videos, because I can always pull B-roll from the review video if I need to. Mark Smith says, only Echo mics. Yeah, that's true. The Echo will pick up the squeaks, wouldn't it? I could program it to do that. Violin Kevin says, Stone Age, just post-fire invention. Yes, that is the one risk, was that we did not have those documents scanned into something that was fireproof. That is very true. Joe Tyson, yes. I'm assuming you're talking about my simplicity statement. Absolutely. Buffalo is such a pleasant word. And Joe thinks that Buffalo is a Japanese company. So oh, they are a Japanese brand. Okay, so they're Japanese, but they're making the hardware in Taiwan, at least this one. Let me eject the other one and see where that one comes from. So let's go back to my computer here. By the way, I've got my awesome, I love this keyboard. You know what this is? Lenovo sent this to me a while ago to review. This is one of the review items they didn't want back. I use this all the time. This is a ThinkPad keyboard and track point. And it's so compact. It's got a little spot for its USB dongle so you don't lose it. It's got Bluetooth. The only downside is that it's not backlit. If it was backlit, it would be like the everything keyboard. It's got like, it doesn't have quite the deep travel. It's about 2/3 of the travel of like a, traditional Lenovo, but it feels good. It's a good all-around thing there. Okay, so let's eject this. I'll give you another look at that hardware. It doesn't get that hot either. It's not feeling that warm to me. So this is the hardware. It is made in Japan. Oh, this is made in Japan. So this one's made in Japan, and this one is made in Taiwan. And it's so funny because back in the 80s, everything was made in Japan. Now, it's almost unusual now to find something made in Japan. Yeah, feels fine. Yeah, it's plastic, it's not metal. But it's not bad. It's good stuff. Roger P. wants to know, how much hard drive and SSD do I need? So on my Mac, my MacBook Air, I've got 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage. And I've had 16 gigs on my systems now for almost 7 or 8 years. I haven't really gone beyond that. My production computer has 32 gigs, just because. And my gaming machine upstairs is 32 also, just because. But for the most part, on my day-to-day, 16 gigs is fine. And then I operate almost entirely all of my video work on external SSDs. So I have a bunch of like 1 terabyte SSDs of varying configurations. And that all seems to work well. Yeah, we are early today because I'm going to shoot my video. Sometimes what happens is that I shoot a video in the morning and then I do a stream in the afternoon. Today I had nothing to shoot, so I thought today I would do my prep work on the video I will be shooting this afternoon, which is these two things. And doing the shoot in kind of reversing my usual thing there. Logi wants to know, is this an OEM PC? Yes, this is a Lenovo Legion 7i desktop. They sent this in. We're going to be donating this one to one of the schools in the area. I've got a bunch of stuff to donate now that the schools are kind of getting back to normal. I'll give you another angle on it here. Let me pull up my other camera. And this one's got an RTX 3080 inside. And what we're doing with the school, I'm very much a big proponent of media literacy. I think if you know how to, sorry for the mess over here, everybody. If you know how to create media, I think you can become a much more critical consumer of media. That's not a political statement. It's just, I think it's important to understand how media is created so that you can know how to interpret what is real and what is not. So this is a pretty beefy system here. And it's completely OEM, take it out. We did a stream a few weeks ago on it, maybe 2 weeks ago. Take it out of the box, you plug it in, you've got your gaming computer. I will say, though, it's got these smaller fans, so the fan noise is a little louder than my production machine. I have one of these Cooler Master cases for my self-built production machine. It's a lot quieter with a bigger fan. So you do hear a little bit of fan whining out of this, but it's not bad. Even when it's under load, it isn't too bad. But that's what we've been using to benchmark everything. Mark's got a Buffalo hard drive with USB 2, going old school. Matt says, yeah, so you know what I've been doing? So I've been live streaming now for almost 2 years. Amazon actually, when they first started doing the live streaming, they had approached and said, hey, would you like to live stream? I said, sure. What do you want me to do? And they said, oh, whatever you want to do. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to live stream either, because I don't want to turn, nothing against the Amazon live streamers who do great work. I just didn't want to be like, hey, here's the deal of the day. Sometimes I do do a little unboxing deal of the day thing, but generally, I thought it might be interesting for people to watch me kind of do my product evaluations and to watch me record videos. So by and large, that's what we do. We unbox things and test them like we did today. Sometimes I record a video live. Other times I'm just trying to come up with some ideas for videos or whatever. And I found that it's been really helpful to get feedback while I am evaluating or while I'm shooting the video from viewers who are watching the live stream, because that often adds things to the mix. So for example, so many of you today were talking about why it's important to bring up the next-gen game consoles, because that's a big use case that I honestly wasn't thinking about when I was really focused on just looking at these as a PC peripheral, but it's actually more than that. So game consoles are a big thing to discuss, and what's the use case there? Does it work with the next generation games? Because that's now a variable that people have to consider. So it's good to hear that feedback because it helps make the videos better. And if you watch the live stream, you can see all of this unfolding in real time, which is also helpful. Oh my goodness, LogikGR says, I got to wake up an hour earlier to beat traffic. Who else has this predicament? I have to wake up an hour earlier because unlike last year, this year both of my kids will be school-aged. So my little one is going into kindergarten. So I've got to get them up and out at the same time. That's going to be the challenge. I had a discussion with my older daughter last night telling her that, we're certainly going to help you in the morning, but you're going to have to do a lot of picking out your clothes yourself now because, you're a third grader, you can do that. So we're going to need your help to not be asked to be pushed along because it's going to be hard to get your sister out the door in the morning. And Gurav says, the word Japan reminds me of his childhood. I always think of that line from Back to the Future when Doc, so when he goes back into the 60s and he's got that camcorder, and Doc says, made in Japan, what junk is this? And Marty says, no, Doc, in the future, all the cool stuff is made in Japan. It's great, right? So yeah, it's very rare that you see things actually made in Japan these days. So yeah, not bad. All right, well, I'm going to grab some lunch, and I'm going to come back and record this later. I won't be streaming that part. But I've got another fun project coming up, so I'm kind of motivated to get as much recorded stuff done as I can so I can focus on this fun project. So yesterday, I got in a screen kit for the Game Boy Advance up there. So we're going to take I have two of those. I have one that I found at my brother's place. So I'm going to convert one of these old Game Boy Advances into a backlit version. That's going to be fun. I just got one of those kits in. So we will check that out. Keith wants to know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it was funny, I got the same question like about an hour ago, or half hour ago. He's working out great with his Starlink. What we'll be doing soon-ish, I got to coordinate the schedule here, but we're going to fly back up there and do a video of getting his network finished up, because right now his network is a real, pardon the pun, a real patchwork of like these lousy old routers and junk. So he's got actually Ethernet running all throughout all of his different buildings. So we're going to get him going with a Unify setup. I've got an extra security gateway. We have to get a cloud key. I've got to get a bunch of Wi-Fi access points for him. We're going to do an outdoor install, I think, as well, so that we can get his network working better throughout the facility there. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing another trip up there, and we'll see actually, because the Starlink has had a number of updates, so it's running a lot faster now than when we first hooked it up there. And we found that when we got, I have a dish also. I canceled the service because I don't need it until we have another disaster around here when we lose power for a month. But it was running about, I think, almost double what it was before. So, and Josh has that potential, but he doesn't have the network capacity. His routers are, it's all got to get upgraded. So we're gonna go up there and do all that for him. Logi KGR, thank you very much for the generous super chat contribution. That was very nice of you. I appreciate that. And we try very hard to deliver useful information and product reviews. Flood of Sin says, I don't remember what age I was when I had to start. Yeah, it's funny. Ever since I had kids, I don't need the alarm clock anymore, because there's one of three things will happen in the morning. A kid, one of the two kids, or the dog. Or I got to go to the bathroom. That's the other thing now that I'm 44. It's like I go to the bathroom all the time. Mark Smith wants to know how many satellites are up. I think they're up to 1,200 now. Let me see how many are up there now. There are 1,500 in orbit, almost 1,500. And they're not all in place yet, but the quality of service has gotten a lot better. My friend around the corner, you see him on here sometimes, Red Techie, he's got all sorts of stuff hooked up at his place. He's been monitoring the performance at his place, and it's been getting a lot better. Kaylee had the Afterburner GBA mod back in the day, but I'd hate to compare it to the modern mods. Yeah, I bought mine from a little retro shop out in Rhode Island, so it just came in yesterday. So we're gonna have some. These are always fun to watch because I'm so bad at putting things together. So I think you'll like that. Simon, this is what I had. I had one of these also. A functional link station NAS, must be 20 years old, sat in its original box in the attic, and I'm sure it works just fine. Yeah, they make some good stuff. Yeah, I think they lost some ground because I think Synology and QNAP, like they built out much more robust and complex operating systems. And so initially, I think when people first started buying these things, they were, the network attached storage, they were just that. It was a hard drive you put on the network. It didn't do anything else. But I think now that people see the value of getting kind of a managed open source server, which is what the Synologies and the QNAPs and the WDs to some degree are, I think there's some value that has brought to the NAS industry. I don't think Buffalo has caught up with them on that. We'll have to check. I haven't checked it in a while. So we'll see how that goes. Handheld obsession on Amazon. Excited to see my handheld. Yes. Well, good. I think I might have you assist me. If you have an obsession with modding handhelds, I might need the help. So we'll see. This is a no solder handheld thing, so it should not be difficult. We'll see how it goes. But all right, I got to run. Going to go pick up some lunch and check my mailbox, and I'm going to go shoot this review and get my charts ready. Handheld wants to know, when is it going to be? I think tomorrow is Wednesday. I might do it on Thursday, because I think if I get this shot and my review of the computer shot, get the work done for the week, then I can focus on that. So aim for Thursday. Let me check my calendar. No promises, but aim for Thursday, because I have a meeting at noon, but after the meeting I can come home and do that. So I'm just going to put it in my calendar. So look for Thursday at 2 p.m. for the live stream, and then I'll turn that into my third video for the week. That will be the game plan. So I think Thursday. That's the plan. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you for tuning in. And I did put that in my calendar, so there you go. And I have that Game Boy Color also, Logi KGR. I've got a Game Boy Color with the translucent case, and I've got 2 GBAs with the translucent case as well. So that's going to be fun. I'll take a few more here. Eric never had a Game Boy, but had a friend at school with one. I had one. A friend of mine had one too. And you know what was awesome about that? And I think what was crazy is that the Game Boy was so amazing for its time, even with the lousy screen and everything, because your only portable game back then were those Tiger handhelds and the equivalent. So to go from that to like a fully functional game system with interchangeable cartridges, bitmapped graphics, with sound, stereo sound. The Nintendo didn't even have stereo sound at that point. So that was pretty good. I'm not worried about the space junk because actually, and this is the truth, they are doing a lot better with controlling orbital debris than they have been in the past, especially with Starlink. And you can, you know, they know where those satellites are. They're not floating around uncontrolled. And the ones that fail, they have a deorbiting plan for them. And they're so low that they're not going to stay up. If they lose their positioning ability, because of their very low altitude, there is some atmospheric drag up there. So all of those satellites, if they don't keep them in place, will come down eventually. And the SpaceX second stages, they actually leave enough fuel on them. They almost every time have a controlled deorbit to take those second stages down. There was one that did not deorbit properly. It ended up over Washington State. But generally, they come back down. So I think they've been pretty responsible. It's just a lot of satellites, but it's not uncontrolled junk, I don't think. So, and that might change, who knows? But I think the orbital height, the altitude that they're at would lead to a lot of atmospheric drag, even if they were completely uncontrolled. So thank you, Joe, for tuning in. Oh, he's going to link up with another YouTuber down in Virginia, Eric's Friday channel. Well, you can tune in on the road if you're not driving. How's that sound? Logic wants to know, you know, that's a good question. So here's what's interesting about, yes, I think if you get killed by a piece of space junk, your life insurance should probably cover that. Now, what's interesting is that there's a global treaty on space hardware. So if a rocket, let's say, launched from, even if a commercial provider launched it, so let's say Elon Musk launches a rocket from Texas and it injures somebody in Australia and damages property, the United States government is actually responsible for the damages. Like, it's an international agreement that the host country is responsible for the damage that something launched from their territory does to another country. And I believe it extends to a U.S. company launching on soil that's not U.S. soil. So for example, like Rocket Lab, I think the U.S. has some liability for Rocket Lab because it's partially owned by an American interest, and New Zealand's got some on the hook there, and U.S. does too. So there's actually international agreements on liability. So, you know, hopefully this never happens, but if some other country's rocket lands on your house, there's actually, you will get compensated because there's an international treaty on that. You can't say that for a lot of other things, but space has that. So they thought about the liability back in the 60s when people started putting stuff in orbit. So there you go. Little factoid. So, all right, I got to run. Handheld in Session, though, says, don't forget about the links. I never had a links, but a friend of mine did, and I thought it was amazing also, especially the scalable graphics for sure. Randall Constant loves my YouTube videos. Thank you very much for popping in, Randall. And we'll be back again soon. So set your notifications, follow, do whatever you got to do, and we'll go from there. So I will talk to you all soon. Look for me on Thursday. I think we'll play around with that Game Boy modification on Thursday. So thank you all for tuning in, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.